next work session is the bond referendum update. Mr. Harris.
Good afternoon, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it's an exciting day for us. It's really sort of the official kickoff of our 2022 referendum campaign. It seems like we've talked about this multiple times, so I won't go through every single detail, but I did want to hit the high points of this presentation, which really serves as the backbone of our public engagement on the topic, which again, really this kind of is the kickoff today. We did have a meeting yesterday with key stakeholder groups, sort of a soft opening, something we haven't done before, and sort of one of those lessons I think we've learned from prior campaigns to cast a wider net and do it earlier on in the process. It was a very good meeting and a lot of good feedback on the presentation itself, and you'll see some of those changes, or some of the changes have already been incorporated here. So I'm just going to run through this, hit the high points. Again, given the length of time we've discussed this, a lot of the pieces and parts, but you can get sort of the feel of what the core presentation will be. And this will be the core presentation for county and schools. And I have to say, having done one of these before, this is the best level of collaboration and cooperation that we've had. I thank Dr. Joe Tyler quite a bit for his partnership in this. They've been fantastic, been in all the meetings, and have been a real invaluable partner. I think that will provide a more seamless message when we're talking about a serious topic with the community with big numbers. It's certainly very helpful that everybody's singing off the same sheet of music. So I think the couple chapters of the story, and again, you all know most of this, so I won't read it to you, but just trying to give you a feel of what we think is important to communicate to the public. First off, we haven't done one of these since 2013. We don't do them but every 8 or 10 years. So just reminding folks early on, what is a referendum? What are we talking about? And I think this, the bullet that we settled on yesterday in terms of language, sort of the approval of the county's long-range capital plan and the financing that goes along with it. You all each April approve a CIP, but what is unique about this, again, is it's multi-year. This is really an 8 or 10-year vision, better a decade-long vision for that. But it allows us to access the AAA bond rating. We talk about it all the time. This is when we take it out of the garage and really have a chance to use it, and to, particularly in an interest rate environment like this, to get that lowest rate possible. And we'll show exactly what that means here in just a second. This particular referendum, $540 million, again, is where we landed, split across 4 categories. We'll give more detail on the second. It's a single question. There's been some feedback on that because, Henrico's going out at the same time as we do. We're typically on the same schedule. They have 4 or 5 questions. Ours is a single question, covers all these categories. There's no right or wrong way to do it, but for us, it's one single question. And again, for county and schools all together. All the debt is managed collectively on the county side. There is no separate bonding authority or debt capacity for schools versus county. We are truly one organization going out through this effort, and thus the single question. So on back to the AAA, why is that important? Trying to, we talk about it a lot, but really putting pen to paper, what does that mean? So one estimate, this is kind of the best information we have today, but if you look at the difference between a AAA and a AA effort in this arena, if we were to borrow that $540 million under each one of those banners, it's going to save you somewhere between $20 and $25 million over the duration of the package. And that we just put it in terms of a couple projects that are included as part of this. So it certainly is real money. That's $20 or $25 million that we don't have to pay in interest costs and can go back into operations. So it certainly is a meaningful thing to be able to access our GO capacity. Always, when we're talking about this stuff, the voters have entrusted us with referendum approvals in the past. We want to make sure we spend a little bit of time reminding them that when that happened, we followed through on all those promises. You see the school slate from 2013 really was the dominant force there. They finished all of those projects and really came in on or under budget, and we were able to go back out, as all of you know, and expand the scope of those projects because interest rates were very favorable at that time through other means to convert a lot of those renovation projects to full replacements. That's all listed out here. The one county project was the emergency communication system, which is on pace to be finished up this year. So a good track record, certainly from the last time we went out, and I think that's an important comment to make. One of the topics that came up yesterday, and we added this this morning, is there's a lot of other capital things going on. We don't want to intend for the referendum to be, the only way that we accomplish capital priorities. So this slide is in here just to give a little flavor of that. Our ARPA program that we've had bestowed upon us from the federal government over the course of the last year or so, we really were in a great position financially, able to turn that focus on to capital facilities, certainly the two middle schools being a large recipient of that. CVTA, I think we all recognize there's not a transportation component to the referendum, so we do point out here, we feel like we were able to do that because CVTA is in place. We're able to handle a lot of those road needs through a different means. And then there are other debt service sources that we've been able to access since the last time we did this, VRA, VPSA being some of those that allow us to get things done. And then just a listing of some of the key highlight projects that are underway right now, just to remind folks, we didn't just, 2013 come talk to you, and now we're waiting again until 2022 to do some of these other items. There are opportunities that come available to us, and being a AAA locality, we can access a lot of these avenues. And so we just, put that reminder out there, folks. I think it's important. How do we pick the projects? You all understand Stratus. A lot of people probably haven't had a chance to come across that, but just reminding folks that we do have tools at our disposal now we didn't in the past to make sure, and again, Stratus doesn't spit out a list of projects, but when we have a kind of a sense or feel for what we might need to invest in, we can use tools like Stratus to say, okay, does this pass this analytics test in terms of where the growth pressures are going to be coming from over the next 5+ years. Certainly that's been a huge help on the school package. We're now extending this into the fire space. It's really helpful there as well, and you'll see some examples of that as we go through the project listing. There's an economic consideration here, certainly getting out of long-term lease space in the example of the police precincts. We've been talking about this through multiple capital cycles, so there's been many public hearings, many community meetings on these projects. That's sort of a gift of COVID. We thought we'd be doing this in 2020, so we've had at least 24 months to vet a lot of this through the public. And then also our continued focus on revitalization. You got a couple on the school side, got a couple 100-year-old facilities that are listed here, probably due for replacement. So how does the 540 break down? Schools is the headliner there from a cost perspective. Of course, their unit cost is just higher than it is for the other categories. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's more or less projects. Parks and libraries coming in at that, around plus or minus $40 million for each of those components, and then 80 for public safety, and that's really split fairly evenly between police and fire. Another consideration, something you really want to pay close attention to when you're talking to the community about this, is there something in my neighborhood, my community, in my district? So we went and plotted out all 26 capital projects that are part of this, and you see a really nice geographic spread across the county. And certainly if you factored in some of the other things we're doing from a couple slides back, it gets even a little more dense, but you see a nice spread. There isn't one corner of Chesterfield that we're hitting more than others, and also a nice balance between, again, adding capacity across all categories and focus on renovation and replacement to make sure we are maintaining a certain standard of public facility. The next few slides, and again, these, I think, by heart at this point, but so I won't belabor them, but we do, from a community perspective, go through and list out the projects in each of the major categories. Here's the school projects totaling the $375, the one footnote there being Midlothian Middle. We know that it's going to need additional dollars, but there is, perhaps a business component of that depending on, where the relocation of that facility occurs. And then we've got a chance to bring other sources such as cash to the table. But certainly getting it in this package helps to lower the overall cost of that particular project. Libraries, and really the focus here, again, that healthy balance, recognizing that in the western third of the county there isn't a current library facility, so this is not a specific coordinate on the earth. It's just a representation that it will be in the Western Hull Street area to add a branch, and then really going back in and expanding one branch that has a smaller footprint and moving and replacing the smallest branch at Enon, again, for sort of that revitalization and equity consideration. Parks and Rec, which really took a heavy focus of our ARPA planning. ARPA allowed for a lot of projects there, such as Cogville Park, that I know you are fond of, Mr. Holland. So you don't see that listed here, but it's still getting done just by another source. River City is the headliner here. It's the one park project that didn't fit within the ARPA envelope. Horner Park, building out that facility more. We recognize that it doesn't have the notoriety and that we necessarily want. So this is an opportunity to activate that space that we already own. Conservation area access. There are 4 points throughout the county that we have purchased over time, but they are largely not accessible to the community. So this adds for some light parking and some trail systems. I think if COVID taught us anything, people really value those opportunities. So you see $2 million to do that in 4 places. And then really taking advantage and developing up our waterfront in 2 spots here with improvements at the Fallen Creek location and then at the Adelon Acres facility that we've been able to purchase over the last couple of years with the additional boat launch to really take advantage of that wonderful natural resource we have. Public safety, and Ms. Carroll, you might know something about this one. There's your favorite Old Bill's Barbecue building, but this is where that economic interest kicks in. 3 of these exist. They're all in long-term lease facilities. We need to get out of that type of arrangement, get these facilities in a more visible community space where they can have access to it, a little different angle on that, and also make it a more modern building for storing and assisting the police department with their mission. We would add the 4th precinct there, the Westchester, the FAR, Midlothian Turnpike doesn't exist today. The police department has divvied up into those 4 areas, so it would be a precinct for each one of those, adding the Westchester as the 4th. The fire plan's a little bit different. This is really focusing on going in. You've got facilities that have just don't meet the modern needs of the system. And you see here Chester, I think that's one of the best pictures. Really can't even almost get the door fully open there at the Chester station. So as apparatus have changed, have become a more modern, sophisticated fire service, we need to make sure that the buildings also represent that. And then expansion and renovations at Clover Hill and Dutch Gap just to kind of stay ahead of that curve. So that's kind of chapter 2, what are the projects? 3rd chapter really talks about, okay, everybody's excited, everybody's with me when we make it the first 2 chapters. How are we going to pay for this? So I think we got a couple of slides in here to talk about this, and we've been through this story in general in this room, but bears repeating because I think it's really important. How do we pay for this? As you know, there's no meals tax associated with this. There's no new tax of any other variety. And the way we're able to do that is really represented here in this slide. This is our combined debt service and mortgage payment on all of our outstanding debt as we have as a county. And you can see what's pictured is if we don't borrow another dollar, at any point in the future, you see how fast it falls off. Almost $40 million by 2030. We're in that second peach bar at $95.3 million. So we structure our debt very aggressively so that we pay it off as fast as we can. We do level principal, not level payment, so that each one of our debt service payments has more principal than interest. If you look at your monthly mortgage statement, you know how much interest you're paying. We try to do the opposite here, and it gives this nice cascading effect over time. It allows us to, in the space that's created each year, add series of bonds back to our outstanding debt book and not put stress on our overall debt service budget. That being said, we do want debt service to grow. It needs to be proportionate with your overall budget. So you get kind of this effect here in the second slide. The peach is just what you saw in the prior. The green represents the duration, and we probably won't sell them quite this fast, so this is probably a worst case scenario, but you see it fits within that space that's vacated by the series that are paid off. And then we've added the blue line here that shows if we grew debt service 2.5%, which is a pretty nominal increase for the overall budget, you're well within that bound. So you could make the argument even that you probably should have even a little more debt service over time. And so we've got some capacity. This is good because we know there's going to be needs and things that crop up that aren't included in this package, so we haven't, maxed out that credit card by any stretch of the imagination. So just to repeat those, no meals tax, no other new taxes. We can manage this within the resources that exist today. That's really important because it not only, does it not put undue burden on the taxpayer, but it doesn't crowd out other spending on the operational side of the house. There's going to be things certainly that we need from a staffing perspective, county, schools, public safety, you name it. We still have the ability to do that and digest this $540 million referendum. We run through the ballot question very quick. Again, one single question. You see the 4 categories in there, the $540 million amount. We just remind folks that if you vote yes, you're approving the projects and the access to the GO credit. Community engagement, again, kicking off really today. Lots of things to note here. We had the community partners meeting yesterday. Tomorrow is the media briefing. We'll go through this deck. We've developed a nice rhythm with them when we bring them in, sort of our major outlets. And just going to be a conversation. We'll go through the presentation and give them that information. We'll be out at a bunch of national night outs coming up. And then we've got Facebook Lives and district meetings scheduling all throughout the month of August. We are, if you are a historic fan of this topic, we're about 30 days ahead of where we would normally be because we've got early voting that kicks in late September. So usually this is a Labor Day through October. So we're kind of backed up from August through the end of September. We'll keep going all the way up until Election Day. But we do want to recognize that a lot of folks are voting early. We want to make sure that the information is in their hand. The website there, chesterfield.gov/bond, is up and running now. Again, however you search that, the IT wizards have made sure that you'll land on this. That's what I've been told, at least. So you can go out there. The website is live and has all this information. We got FAQs. We're building out the project details, and we'll continue to add all of the information over time. We'll be utilizing a lot of our new tools, our podcast, our blogs, our videos, our social media. All of those things are scheduled for release over the course, really, of August. We want to make sure we have some new content all throughout August, so all of those pieces and parts will be out there. We'll have at least 3 podcasts and several blogs that will accompany that. Lots of digital and print materials that will be available on the website. Someone wants to come and download something and pass it out for their own group. There's a lot of that happens. That's certainly available on the website as well. And lastly, our Speakers Bureau, really make a big push for that. That's live now. If anyone has a group, they can go on there and request it. We've built out a team of county and school reps that will come out and talk to anybody at any time, go through the presentation, or just have a conversation, or just get them information. So the Speakers Bureau, which has worked really well, is live now with a tab for the bond referendum. And then just lastly, we remind folks about voting information because it is a little bit earlier than the normal, particularly for a referendum. So we end our presentation with that slide. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Questions, comments from board members? Just a couple of things I wrote down. First, excellent job, and excellent job as always. We really have to give it to our budget staff because it can't be stressed enough that out there looking at localities across the country during COVID, when all of the relief was being doled out by the federal government in various means, we are a county that, because we're so well fiscally managed, we're able to put those monies into capital facilities and really plan, I think, for the best possible investment that you can make, as opposed to dealing with operational items on an ongoing basis. And I think that's something that's really critical. There's a lot of localities who aren't well managed fiscally. They were plugging in the federal dollars into one-time programs that you're not going to get that recurring use and utility out of those funds. So this bond referendum is robust, this package, because in part of that long-standing effort and dedication. And so I just want to express my appreciation on that. The other thing is Stratus, and Stratus should be, hopefully throughout this process, a household name, because that is the brain. I think Mr. Engel calls it the big brain that we developed with Microsoft and with our very strong IT folks who have worked hard to come up with a program that projects where we have public facility needs in Chesterfield County. And so take a look at it. If you type in, if you Google Chesterfield Stratus, you can go in there and play with it and see where the needs are for various items across the county. And I know they're working on that program and trying to improve it all the time. But it's great for schools right now, and I think we're looking to use that further. Does that prompt anyone? Thank you, Mr. Harris. I appreciate it. Dr. Casey, excuse me.
Yeah, I just had a couple of things to add, and again, I want to thank specifically, Matt Harris and his team. You referred to budget, but they are led by Matt. So he has lived and breathed every project you've seen on the screen probably for the last 6 years, quite frankly. Just a couple of observations just from our meeting from all those different engaged parties. And again, I just want to clearly state, anyone who's interested in learning about what you just saw and has any questions, we will come out to you, we will answer a phone call or answer an email. You're the customer. We will serve you in any way possible. And this is just not, quote unquote, passing a bond referendum. I mean, these projects stand on their own. They're pretty, they're geographically spread out across the entire county. They're all needed. So this isn't just trying to get to 51%. This is trying to illustrate who we are and what the people have been saying that they may need for the last, 9, 10 years since the last referendum. And, ideally, I just want to get the maximum information out to the people. It's their decision to make. I respect their decision, but all we can do is inform them the best we can. And if we get a very high bond referendum pass rate, again, that's something else we can tout, because, again, it's just not a show of support from the community. It's passage. It's a show of, again, the community understands who we are. Again, I respect their vote. Other observations that came up, all the existing facilities we own, they were all respectful and thankful of how we maintain something. So we just don't build something that's new and shiny and walk away from it. We are maximizing the life of any and all facilities that have been built. So again, something that might be 40 years old, we try and treat it with the same care and attention as if it's 4 months old. The other thing is that there's some sites that have been secured that are part of the bond referendum. We'll clearly communicate that. We may even start having display boards and signage in different locations, like future site of X or Y. Don't necessarily need to get ahead of ourselves. Again, we need to respect the bond referendum, but we have a lot of portals in our schools, libraries, community centers where people can see and learn about projects nearby and maybe the sites that have been secured. We try and secure those sites, quite frankly, with cash as best we can. We use year-end surpluses when we can. We've come to you even mid-year when a transaction arises for a future asset. And while we may have desired to try and do this earlier, a year, 2 years ago, we were mindful that the pandemic and where we were and the uncertainty of it all, when you start something this early, you don't know when something's 5 months out. So having said that, we had, and Matt illustrated very clearly on the slide, many projects that we did not feel like were worthy of delaying into this referendum. We're going to be, we just opened up Mosley Elementary School, Magnolia Fire Station, Midlothian Fire Station are just a few. And so I think we're going to give clear representations to the public that we didn't wait for certain bond referendum projects because, again, they would have easily qualified for it, and we could have had a larger question that waited. These are facilities that needed to be deployed sooner than later. And then last but not least, and again, just from talking to some people, it gets very complicated very fast when we talk in millions of dollars of how that relates to someone's own household budget. And my simple analogy is when you saw the slide of Mr. Harrison and the debt rolling off, I kind of view it as these are assets. When it's rolling off, it's something that we bought 20 years ago. It's a school, it's a library, it was a fire station 20 years ago. And it's kind of like you entering into a mortgage payment 30 years ago if you had a 30-year mortgage, and now you've actually owned your house 30 years later. Well, you have that mortgage payment ability to do, so there's two things you can do. You can buy a second home because we're not going to give up our first home necessarily, or you can, spend it differently. So again, what we're doing is really buying our second homes, if you will, that are additional facilities to serve the additional people. And again, some people tended to understand that better than some things that were framed in the millions of dollars. So I just wanted to add perspective to it from my vantage point. But again, Mr. Harrison's team and many of us, all those departments are going to be part of this communicative exercise, and we will try and be as responsive to you and your constituents and your districts for any meetings for which you can be a party to. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Casey.